All right, my friends. Well, let's continue on in our study of John, going through and reviewing things and putting the whole thing together. Eis ta idia eilthen, kai hoi idioi auton u par elabon. Again, so important to see the phrases here, and in this case, two independent clauses. Either of these could stand alone as a sentence. Eis ta idia eilthen, he came to his own things. And hoi idioi auton u par elabon, his own ones didn't receive him. Our preposition here is eis. Eis always takes the accusative, so we know this is accusative plural, ta. If we bring our article up here, we see ta here is the accusative plural or nominative plural form. But in this case, it has to be accusative because eis always takes the accusative. So eis ta idia. Now, idia means one's own, and here it's plural and neuter, so one's own things, which is a little strange, but he came to his own things. Probably speaking about like creation here. To all the things he made, he came. Looking at the rest of the substantives here, we have hoi idioi auton u par elabon. His own ones did not receive him. Nominative plural masculine, right? So this is the subject, his own ones. Notice here, because it's masculine, it's his own ones, not his own things, but probably here his own people. His own people did not know him. Auton, accusative case, right? Because it's receiving the action of the verb. Here we go again. Eilthen. When you see that, you think second aorist from erchomai. Erchomai, I come. Eilthon, I came. So in this case, on would be I came. S, you came. N would be he, she, or it came. So in this case, into his own, he came. He came to his own. Kai hoi idioi auton u not par elabon. Okay, here's another one to learn to recognize from lambano becomes lob. Remember that lob there, okay? So here we have the aorist form, elabon, and par elabon is like to receive. So they received par elabon. Notice that could be I receive or they received. Here it's clearly the subject is plural, right? His own ones, him, not they received. Third person plural. So this would be a second aorist, active indicative, third person plural. Hasoi de elabon auton, edoken autois, exousion, tekna theu gen esthai. Tois pistiu usin, eis ta anima autu. Punctuation is your friend, never forget, because it helps you keep the phrases separate. As many as he received him, he gave to them authority, children of God to become, to those believing in his name. 3 phrases here. This is sort of long. Let's look at it a phrase at a time. Hasoi de elabon auton. As many as received him. Well, hasoi, we may not know that word, but we notice nominative plural masculine, right? So it's as many, plural. But as many, and notice this post-positive. As many, but, we wouldn't do that way in English, but again, post-positive. But as many, they received him. Auton, receiving the action of the verb, therefore accusative case. What about elabon? Well, we just looked at that one, right, from lambano. So elabon is the second aorist form, right? And that's the third person plural. As many, they received him. Edoken autois exousion teknetheu genesthai. He gave to them authority. In other words, here's our direct object, exousion. We have an accusative feminine singular here. He gave authority, autois, to them. Notice dative plural masculine there. He gave authority to them. Children of God. So tekna, children. It's plural right here. Techna, nominative plural neuter, because technon is neuter. Children of God, genitive singular masculine. Children of God, we use our keyword of there. Let's look at our two verbs here. He gave. Edoken is from didomi, and it's a me verb, but notice here in the aorist, it's edoka. We've seen this before, that in the me verbs, they're called kappa aorist sometimes. They have kappas instead of sigma alpha, it's kappa alpha. Very annoying because it winds up looking like a perfect to us. But notice there's no reduplication here. It's edoken, not dedoken, but edoken. And that ending there, edoken, is our normal third person singular ending. So this is just an aorist active indicative third person singular. Now look at the next verb, gen esthai. Oh boy, here we go again. It's genomai. And you see the gamma epsilon nun. That's your clue that you're looking at genomai. Gamma epsilon nun. Notice that the stem is gamma epsilon nun. In the present, it's gen with an iota. In the aorist and actually everywhere else, it's gamma epsilon nun. So, gen esthai. Well, we see that alpha iota ending. It should jump out to you and scream infinitive, okay? And when you see esthai, you know it's a middle passive form. So this will either be present or second aorist. Those are the only ones with esthai. So our question is, has there been a stem change? And yes, indeed, there has. What happened to the augment? Remember, there's no augment outside of the indicative mood because the infinitive has nothing to do with time, only aspect. He gave to them authority, children of God to become. Then our final phrase here, tois pistiu usin eis ta anima autu. To the ones believing, to the believing ones in the name of him. Eis ta anima autu we've looked at. But this, what about this participle? Well, notice it has the article. So when you have the article, you never should miss the case number and gender. Tois, let's just bring it up here. We know this one, right? This would be dative plural, either masculine or neuter, because we're talking about people here. We're masculine. To the believing ones. Okay, pistiu usin. Now that ending might sort of jump out as weird to you. Usin almost looks like a third person plural ending, but it's not. Notice here that in the dative plural participle, it is usin. So, to the believing in his name. So, this whole sentence, hasoi de elaban auton, edoken autois exousian teknethou genesthai, tois pistiu usin eis ta anima autou. Hoi uk ex haimaton, ude ek thelematos sarkas, ude ek thelematos andros, all ek theu egenetheson. Who are these ones who believe in his name? They are those who are not of blood, and not of the will of the flesh, and not of the will of man, but of God they are born, okay? So let's look at all this string of prepositions here, all with ek. And remember that ek and ex are the same thing. It depends on what follows, whether you have a xi like this or a kappa, but they both mean out of, away from, and it always takes the genitive. So these are those hoi. Notice that's a relative pronoun, rough breathing mark and accent. There we go. These are the ones who, nominative plural masculine, not ex haimaton, genitive plural, right? And they're not of the will of flesh, genitive singulars. Notice these are third declension. Sarkos and thelematos are both third declension. Nor are they ek thelematos andros. Once again, these third declension genitive endings. But ek theu, from God. Finally, we have a second declension genitive ending. But of God they are born. So just notice that we have ek with the genitive over and over again. Okay, let's unpack this verb. They were born. Okay, well, I hope a couple of things jump out to you. I've made it sort of easy here by highlighting them, augment and theta eta. So hopefully immediately you're thinking aorist passive. And when you see the ending thesan, hopefully that makes you think third person plural, thesan, right here. So they were something. In this case, it's born. Ganao means I beget. Now, these three verbs can be very confusing. So gather round me, children. I'm going to share with you some good wisdom, okay? This is a really good tip because it will help you keep these three verbs sorted out. If you have ganao, I want you to notice that you always have a double noon in every form. Gen with two noons. So that's a form of beget. With genomai, you have gamma epsilon and only one noon, okay? So only one noon involved in genomai, I become. Genosko, I know, has gamma noon smashed together with no vowel in between except in the present tense stem. So that's a good tip. But this one is from ganao. And notice, I'll point this out to you, but how the connecting vowel, this contract vowel, I should say, lengthens before the personal endings. It always does it. See that? That's a typical of contract vowels. So, again, a, the, san. They were born. The whole verse now. Hoi uk ex haimaton, uda ek thalematas sarkas, uda ek thalematas andras, all ekthau egenethesan. Kai halagos sarx egeneta. Kai eskenosen in hemin. Kai etha asamatha tain doxon autu. Doxon hos mana genus para patras. Pleires, charitas, kai, aletheas. Obviously, that's a mouthful. Let's make sure we see the phrases here. The Word became flesh. It tabernacled among us. We beheld its glory. And then we go on and define this glory. What glory? Glory as the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. So really there are four phrases here that we need to look at one at a time. So the first phrase here, halagos sarx egeneta. So logos here, nominative singular masculine. Sarx, nominative singular masculine. Nice that they're both in the chart. So this is in case of predicate nominative because genomai is a to-be verb. Egeneta. Here we go again with that verb. Remember this one. Here's a chance to apply what I just said. Egeneta. Notice gamma epsilon noon is from genomai. I am or become. And as we've seen over and over, this is the second aorist form, which also is deponent. So it came to be. The second phrase, kai eskenosen in hemin. It dwelt or tabernacled. That's what this word skenao means. In us or among us, either translation is fine. In with the dative. And notice this is the first person pronoun. Dative form, hemin. So it tabernacled in or among us. Now what do we do with this one? Skenao. How did that become eskenosen? Well, we see the augment, right? So that's making us think aorist or imperfect. And when we see this ending sen, it's almost always an aorist. I hope you're starting to see that. It's sa, sas, sen. But there are a lot of third-person singular aorists, so get used to that. That's just an aorist active indicative, third-person singular. It tabernacled among us. Next phrase, kai etha asamatha tein doxon autu. We beheld the glory. Do you see how glory is receiving the action? It's a feminine noun. It's in the accusative case, which only makes sense. It's receiving the action of the verb. We beheld the glory of him or it could be either one, right? It's a genitive singular, either masculine or neuter. And we beheld. Okay, what's going on with this one? Well, I hope you see the augment, the sigma alpha, so you're thinking aorist. And when you see metha, you think middle, aorist middle, samatha. And here it is right here, right? So etha asamatha is from theaomai, and of course you would have to look that up, because how would you know? It means I behold. So etha asamatha, this is a first person plural ending. We beheld. Notice that it's deponent. Even though it's middle passive, in this case, middle in form, it's active in meaning. Glory as the only begotten of the Father. Para patros. Hopefully you recognize that preposition with what case? Patros, genitive, right? Because para here with the genitive means from. So doxon hos is like. Monogonous is a strange declining adjective here, and this is actually a genitive form, but don't worry about that. And finally, pleires charitas kai aletheas, full of grace and of truth. Notice the genitives. Charitas, aletheas. Charis is a third declension noun, feminine, so here it is. And aletheas, first declension feminine. And pleires, this is actually a nominative form. It's sort of a strange adjective. And now just read it with me. Kai halagos sarx ageneta, kai eskenosen in hemin, kai etha samatha ten doxon autu, doxon hos monogonous para patros, pleires charitas kai aletheas. Ioannes martyre peri autu, kai kekragen, legon, hutas ein han epon, ha opiso mu erchamenos, imprasthen mu geganin, hati protos mu ein. And I remind you to please pay attention to your phrases, which your punctuation can help you with, as well as your conjunctions. Helps you in long verses like this. And of course, pay attention to your prepositions and their objects. Peri with the genitive is concerning. Opiso is not a common one, takes the genitive, it means after. And imprasthen, also not very common, it means before, also takes the genitive. But the really interesting stuff in this verse is the verbs. So let's look at them one at a time. John is bearing witness, martyre. From martyreo, notice that it is a contract verb. And so our oase here has a circumflex over it that shows this contract has happened. John is bearing witness, and he has cried out. Kekragen. Now, as soon as you see the reduplication, you're probably thinking perfect, but where's our kappa? What's going on with this one? Well, let's look at this. It's from krodzo, I cry out. Notice that it's a second perfect. Kekraga. That means that it doesn't have a kappa. Remember, that's all that means. A second perfect active has the reduplication, but it doesn't have the kappa. In other words, instead of ka, kas, ken, kamen, kata, kasin, it's a, as, en, amen, ata, asin, okay? So here we have the second perfect ending. So John has cried out, saying, so here's our participle, and here's this really common nominative masculine singular ending for the participle. This is the present active indicative, right? It just means saying. He cried out, saying. This is an adverbial participle here. No article, notice. And it's giving us a little more about the crying out. He cried out, saying, legon, Hutas ein han apon. Okay, that's kind of an awkward phrase there. This was he whom I said. Hutas, I hope you recognize that as our near demonstrative pronoun. So this, ein is right here. It was, or in this case, he was, whom, relative pronoun, right? See the rough breathing and the accent. So whom I said, apon. Now apon's a little weird for us because now we're looking at a second aorist. Apon is from Lego. So here we have the present form saying, hutas ein han apon. This is the second aorist, and this is that weird one with multiple roots. Very common, apon. And remember, the on ending here is just our secondary ending. I said, apon. This is an interesting arrangement here. The one after me, coming, before me, has been, because ahead of me, he was. So we have these three verbs sort of set out together. Erchamenos is actually a participle, of course. We recognize our men here in the middle, right? Men. And would this look like a present, an aorist, or a perfect to you? Well, it's from erchamai, and it hasn't changed, has it? So this is a present, middle passive participle. Recognize the ending? Nominative singular masculine. Matches our article here. The one coming after me, imprasthenmu geganin. We've seen this one before. It's from genomai, and here it is, gegana, and in fact it's the verb I chose for the paradigm here, geganin. It's a second perfect active, and again we have this frustration of no kappa here to help us out, but we do have a reduplication. So, before me has been, because ahead of me he was, ein. And hopefully by now that's so easy because you recognize that as a form of me, ein, right there. Let's read the whole thing together. Ioannes martyre periautu, kai kekragen legon, hutas ein han apon, ha opisomu erchamenas, imprasthenmu geganin, hati protasmu ein. Hati ektu pleiromatas autu, hemes pontes elabomen, kai charen anti charitas. Paying attention again to our conjunctions and prepositions. Break this into some phrases, but also notice we have ek with the what here? Genitive, right? Here we have a third declension genitive. Here we have a second declension genitive. Ek takes the genitive. And then over here we have grace anti charitas. Charin is a strange accusative form. This is an accusative feminine singular. Grace anti, and anti, as we'll see here, anti takes the genitive instead of for, or I'm calling it here after. It's hard to know exactly what John meant by this. Grace upon grace? Grace for grace? It's hard to know exactly what he was after, honestly, with that one. Anti charitas. And of course, pronouns everywhere here. From the fullness of him, autu, that's right here, of his, if we like, from his fullness, hemes, that's our nominative plural form of the first person pronoun. Remember, no gender, so nominative plural, first person pronoun, we. We all, pontes. Another adjective, good old pos here. So here's our nominative plural masculine form, pontes. And let's make sure we understand our verb here. We received. When you look at elabamen, I hope you think lambano and you think second aorist. You see that stem change there? Elaban became elabamen. So you can see that on sn, amen, elab, amen. So that's our first person plural ending. So we received. Hati hanamas dia mauseos edathe. He charis kai he aletheia dia Jesu Christu egeneta. This time let's look first at these verbs. Okay, the law through Moses, edathe, was given. Thinking didomi, right? Da is our root of didomi. And you see the theta eta, aorist passive. So here we have thein, theis, they. So this is third person singular. It was given. And then grace and truth through Jesus, egeneta. We've seen this one before, of course, from genomai. It's that second aorist, which is also deponent, agenomein, again u, again eta. So third person singular. It came to be. This verse is packed with nouns here. We've got dia with the genitive, and that's one of those strange genitives that ends in omega sigma. But dia Jesu Christu is straightforward, nice, easy, second declension genitives. Dia with the genitive means through. So the law through Moses, grace and truth through Jesus Christ. So these nouns are all subjects. They're all in the nominative case. Ha, logos. Or here, he, charis, which is a third declension noun. Here, he, aletheia, first declension feminine here. Hati hanamas dia mauseos edathe. He charis kai he aletheia dia Jesu Christu egeneta. Theon, udes, heoraken, popata. Monogenes, theos, ha, on, eis, ton, kalpon, tu, patros, ekenos, exegesata. Let's take apart these verbs first. So God, no one, heoraken. Well, you see the ken ending, you're thinking maybe perfect. You'd be thinking right. It's from horao. And this is one of those verbs that's just very irregular. Becomes opsomai in the future, adon in the aorist, and heoraka in the perfect. And you can see it has multiple roots, and that's its problem. But in this case, heoraka became heoraken. So that's our third person singular ending, right? Ka, kas, ken. Common, kata, kasi. So in this case, he has come to see. Look at this participle, own. Where's the verb? There is no verb. This is the to be form of the participle, which really works out to be just the endings. Just the ending of the participle with no verb just means being, okay? And in this case, we have the article, so it's the one being, nominative singular masculine. That one has explained him. Exegesata. Sounds like a word maybe you know, exegesis, right? So the only begotten God in the bosom of the Father, that one explained him, explained God. Isn't that cool? Exegeted God, if you will. Exegesata. Well, what kind of verb are we looking at here? We see the sigma alpha, we're thinking aorist. We see sata, we're thinking aorist middle, right? Sata. And sure enough, that's exactly what this is. Its deponent from exegeamai in the aorist is exegesata. He explained him. Now let's just look at the case endings here. Theon, accusative, right? Accusative singular masculine. So no one has come to see God. God receiving the action. We see God. No one has come to see God. Udes, remember u is like not. And then heis mia hin. Udes, udamia, uden means no one. Masculine, feminine, and neuter form. So no one has come to see God. Popata, at any time. Nice adverb there. Monogenes theos. This is that odd declining noun here, but this is the nominative form. The only begotten God, which is a strong statement, isn't it? The only begotten God? Ha-on eistan kalpan. The one being in the bosom. Eistan kalpan. Eis with the accusative here. If you'll remember, eis always takes the accusative. So eis, eistan kalpan. Tu patros, of the Father, genitive, right? Here's a second declension genitive and a third declension genitive. So the only begotten God, the one being in the bosom of the Father, that one, and I hope you're thinking far demonstrative pronoun there, ekenos, that one. And notice it's substantival here, not just that, but that one. We supply the one here. That one has explained him. Theon udes heorakan popata. Monogenes theos haon estan kalpan tu patros. Ekenos exegesata. So is it starting to come together? Keep at it. It will. Sometimes the puzzle pieces are a little hard to put together, but when it comes all into place, you'll see it will all be worth it. And suddenly one day you'll wake up and this will be easy.